Now back to Inside Real Estate. Here's Mike the Realtor.
Hey, folks, we are back. Time for a little mortgage talk. By the way, our website, InsideRealEstateRadio.com, InsideRealEstateRadio.com. And Terry's website over at Supreme Lending is TerryWagner.com. Terry is here, our resident mortgage expert. How we doing, Terry?
I'm great. How are you, Mike?
I'm good.
Good.
So what's going on in the mortgage world today?
Well, I thought in light of Veterans Weekend, we would talk about the VA loan.
That sounds perfect.
But I also wanted to let everyone know that if you call in either here or call me at the office or call me on my cell phone or contact me through my website, however, and let me know that you came from the radio show, that we will credit you back the cost of your appraisal at closing.
There you go. Very nice.
So nice little benefit trying to get folks to call in and talk to us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do want to talk to Terry live, you can. 888-787-CLIFF, 888-787-CLIFF.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about our veterans and the special financing that we have available for them. That's the VA loan. And hands down, it's the best loan type as long as it's available for the borrower. So if you're doing a purchase or a rate and term refinance, or have you ever heard of an IRRRL loan?
I have not.
It's a refinance. It's kind of like a streamline refinance. It is a interest rate reduction refinance loan. It's called an IRRRL.
Definitely didn't hear about that one.
But any of those, if your loan amount is under $417,000, you have to have a credit score of a 620. If you're over the 417, you have to have a 640. So, and did you know that you can go over 417 on a VA loan?
I did. I've done one of those before.
Yep. There's a special formula that we have to put in place, but you can absolutely go above the conforming limit of 417 and still do a VA loan.
Yeah. Interesting story. I had a client that bought a home. It was about $525 was the sales price, and they put down, because of the formula, about $27,000.
Right.
So very low down for a home that was $500,000.
Yeah, I've done a couple of them myself. It is a great loan, and not everybody knows that you can do that. So
right, exactly.
So we can do a manual underwrite, or we can do an automated underwrite. We're not restricted to, we've talked about going through the automated system and make sure we get an approval there. We don't necessarily have to have an automated approval to do a VA loan. You do if you're over the 417, obviously, but we just have some specific guidelines that go into place when we're having to do a manual underwrite. We're going to have quiz time.
Uh-oh.
Who can purchase a VA a home with the veteran besides just the veteran? Who else can go on the loan with him?
The spouse.
Only the spouse. That's it. No girlfriend, no sibling, no one else. Veteran and spouse. That's it. Okay. So we got to keep that in mind.
What do I get for answering correctly on that?
Do I get? I'll get you
cookie?
A cup of coffee. Yeah. So let's talk about credit for a minute, because that's one of the key components to all that we do in the mortgage world.
Yeah. Okay,
so it's a little different for VA loans. You have to have 2 years lapsed from a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13 or a deed in lieu or short sale. Okay. That's a little different than if you're doing a conventional loan, a little shorter time. Here's what I always found amazing. You only have to have 2 years lapsed on the foreclosure. FHA, you have to have 3 years. So, but on a VA, it's just 2 years since a foreclosure. Now, you can run into problems if your foreclosure was a VA loan and they did not reinstate your certificate of eligibility. Your full entitlement. So we'll have to look at all of that. But typically, 2 years on a foreclosure is all we have to wait.
Okay.
Like with any loan type that we do, all judgments have to be paid at or before the time of closing, or we can set up a payment a payment arrangement on that judgment, but you have to have made payments. That's a set the purchase out a little bit.
Okay.
We'll set that up, set the payments up, and set the purchase out a little bit. Down payment, 0 down.
Zippo.
Nothing down. Don't have to have any down payment. There's 2 loan types that still allow for 0% finance or 0% down payment. VA is one of them. USDA is the other. Let's see what else. Gift. You can have gift funds for your closing costs or whatever, but we can certainly use gift funds on a VA loan, so that's okay to do. And
that can come in important when, especially in a tough market, when sometimes
Right.
0 down loans are not exactly what the seller or seller agent are looking for. Maybe, we need some, obviously with a VA loan, there are some things that are mandatory the seller has to pay.
Yes.
And in addition, we may need some additional help for the VA buyer as well. And so sometimes those gift funds, particularly in this type of tight market, can come in handy.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Because on the VA loan, you do have what they call the non-allowables. So you've got particular fees that the buyer is not going to be allowed to pay. And typically that's going to be somewhere just under $2,000 worth of your closing costs. So most often you'll have to ask the seller to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you may be passed over. Your offer may be passed over if you're asking the seller to pay part of your closing costs. If you're comparing a VA loan to some other type of financing that's not asking them to pay anything, you could be passed over.
Right.
Well, there's a different option for that because you can also have lender paid on those fees. So we can certainly look at showing lender paid on those fees as opposed to asking the seller to pay it.
Right.
So we'll talk about all of that as well when you call in.
And in some cases, there may be an option too, if we feel like that house is going to appraise higher, we just increase the sales price as well and for that amount.
And we've talked about this before on the show that, sometimes we wish the sellers would be a little more conscious,
compassionate
on when they're looking at their different offers and maybe give a little special consideration to our veterans when they're looking at all of that. It's not always all about the money.
Yeah, or at least just don't automatically discount it.
Right.
At least give it a reasonable thought. Business is business, like we always say, but give it a thought.
Right.
Think about it. At least versus just discounting it right offhand.
Absolutely.
Just because it is going to be maybe a more difficult loan to process, to deal with, maybe a little bit, and maybe a little bit less financially.
Right. The appraisals that we have to have on a VA loan come directly from a VA portal that we have. So that can take a little more time to process on the VA appraisal. But the rest of the loan itself really is no additional time required on our end. But sometimes the VA appraisal can take a little longer.
Right.
But you can do a 15, 20, 25, 30-year mortgage fixed. We can do the single-family residency condos. We're not restricted to just the brick-and-mortar single-family residency. We can do the condos as well on a VA loan. So funding fees. This is what's so important. If we have a veteran who has disabilities and receives disability through the VA, there is no funding fee. That makes this loan, again, hands down, the best loan type for our veterans.
Right.
Because the funding fee is kind of like your mortgage insurance, for a lack of a better way of explaining it.
Mm-hmm.
But there is no funding fee at all when you're a disabled vet. So I think that's a huge advantage to going VA.
Absolutely. And there's one misnomer too, and I just want to mention this, that a lot of veterans think they can only use their VA once.
Right.
And, they forget when they pay off a home that, they could use it again.
Right.
Or if they've are moving, like, oh, I used my VA, my last one, I can't use it for the next one. Well, yes, you can. You can continue to use it once you dispose of the first one.
Okay. Well,
or pay it off.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay it off. You can have 2 VA loans. There's a specific formula that we have to use. But let's say you bought a home using the VA eligibility and it's not quite paid off and you're moving to a different city and you want to rent that house out. you can absolutely do another VA loan on the new purchase. Again, we just have to apply this formula, make sure the numbers fit.
The equity is there.
Right. But we don't necessarily have to discount, or you don't have to necessarily sell that house or refinance it into another type of financing. We can certainly look and see if we can do a second VA loan.
There you go.
Okay.
And it all depends about your eligibility.
Right.
And there's got to be equity in the property.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, there's got to be equity in there. And then another thing I wanted to bring up, if you are a spouse of a deceased veteran, we can still do a VA loan for you. So that's another loan type that we can, I've done a couple of those as well. I had a customer, now it took us a little bit of extra time to secure the correct documentation,
right,
to show the underwriter that, yes, her husband was a veteran and he was within this time frame of serving. So it took us a little bit of extra time, but it was certainly worth the effort. And
yeah, there are absolutely spousal benefits, for deceased veterans. Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. There's just a lot of benefits as a veteran to doing a VA loan, and certainly something that if you are a veteran, we need to look into.
Yeah, absolutely. And, some of those misnomers is that, 1, you can't go over the 417.
Right.
2, that you can only use it once.
Right.
So, and those are not true.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. And, I've worked with a lot of folks that, try to use USAA, or Navy Federal. And even though they support, the men and women, of the armed services all the time with their banking, I find that their mortgage services are always extremely lacking. So if you are with Navy Federal or USAA out there, I'm telling you, Terri knows VA inside and out. You might want to trust her and talk to her about it, even over, your USAA and Navy Federal folks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So just go to the terriwagner.com and give her a shout and talk to her about it.
Absolutely. Don't forget, we'll pay for your appraisal if you call us.
Yeah. Mention the show when you call her. Hey, folks, we're going to take a short break. See you in a few.